We are in week 2 of this series. Definitely, maybe last week, we talked about top relationship secrets. If you missed last week, that's okay. You can catch it on the One Church app. You can catch it online. But that message will help you just kind of crush it in your relationships. If you're married, listen. You need to go listen to the last week because it's going to help you tremendously. If you're dating, if you ever wanted to become married, check it out. You're going to be ahead of the curve. It's going to be good. But I'm so excited about today because we're getting to talk about something I think is really relevant, but also really helpful, and it's certainly important. We're going to talk about communication. We're going to talk about communication. We're going to talk about in the context of just kind of how we interact with other people. We're going to talk about in the context of maybe marriage, maybe it's parenting, maybe it's just at work. It's going to have applications across the board today. And so while last week was geared more towards relationships, marriage relationships, dating relationships, this can be broadened out a little bit. But the reason we titled this series definitely maybe is because that's the level of commitment that we usually enter relationships into. Right, just like I'm definitely, well, maybe into you. Like we'll just kind of see how this kind of goes. But we're gonna talk about love and marriage and relationships and communication. So today we're talking about communication. Now the purpose of communication is to convey information from one person to another one, right? Correct. Yes. Through our choice of words, we exchange concepts, we exchange emotions, we exchange opinions, ideas. All kinds of different things. Unfortunately, miscommunication is common. In fact, miscommunication happens when the listener fails to understand what is actually being said, or it's just not being communicated, right? And 90% of workplace or relationship issues have been found to be somewhat rooted in miscommunication. 90% of your work issues are probably rooted in some sort of miscommunication. 90% of your marriage issues are somehow rooted in miscommunication. All across the board, this is what studies have shown. But because we have power in our words, using the right words at the right time, it can be super influential, can be super powerful. You have the power to speak life, love, joy over a person, or you have the power to sow division or conflict or unrest in a person. And whether you speak your words or you email your words, or some of you like to text your words, which I think is the best way to miscommunicate how you feel. In fact, if I'm going to share with you, you've probably seen this, these text message exchanges that are just flawed miscommunication. In fact, here's one we'll share with you right here. This is from Mark. He says, "Hey, dude, what's your street name?" Lil Marco. "You live on a street called Lil Marco?" "Oh, you meant my address." You'll get it, right? You'll get there. My street name. My street name is Lil Marco. Yeah, it's a little bit of miscommunication. Like texts can be. Here's another one. This is from. This is disturbing. I think we need to spend some time apart. "Oh, nice, Jen, dumping me over text, real classy. Whatever. I don't want to be done with you anyway." "Well, I meant to write spend some time at Pat's, not apart. But this has been enlightening." "Oh, I was just kidding. I want to date you." Right? I'm sure that didn't go over well. This has been enlightening. Text exchanges can be a problem, right? The single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that is taking place. And so today's message is super practical, and we're going to put it into action immediately. And today's message is entitled, "I said this, you heard that." Right? I said this, you heard that. Has that ever happened to you? Right? You said this to your spouse about cleaning the house, and they heard something else. Right? Or you said this to your teenage daughter about curfew, and she definitely heard something different than what you said. Maybe at work you set some very clear expectation. You sat down with your team, and your team delivered something completely different. Right? And you're just shaking your head and like, why did you do this? And like, "I didn't hear you say that. I didn't hear. This is not," you're like, "Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth." Right? It's just, miscommunication happens all the time, and so does selective hearing. Selective hearing is a real issue. It happens in my house all the time. All the time. And it happens both ways. There's some things that I'll say, and I know that when Jen will listening to me, she's hinged on that first word, and then she's camped on that first, whatever word she was waiting for. She's camped on that word, and she missed the rest of the sentence. And then I'm like, no, I didn't say that. I was saying this. And conversely, there's some things that she has communicated to me that I had no idea that she was trying to tell me, right? I had no idea what she was trying to say. There's been times where she's said, hey, I don't want anything for my birthday. Guys, that's a trap, right? That's a trap. I feel like that's a trap. And so I've learned, I've been married for almost 14 years, and I've learned that there's hey, I don't want anything for my birthday means, hey, I don't want you to do anything big for my birthday or special, or I don't want to have 35 people over and a surprise party for my birthday. But, you might want to do something. Dinner would be nice, So but you have to kind of, sometimes you have to read between the lines. You have to understand what communication gaps exist. I've had a lot of these, both personal, and professional, but it's a huge part of everyday life, and miscommunication causes problems, because there's always two parts to communication, right? There's expressing your ideas and your wishes, but communication isn't just about what is said, it's also about what is heard. And most of us communicate through our words, but the secret is that we include all these unspoken emotions and opinions and thoughts and personality quirks, and then all those in play, the opportunity for miscommunication is very, very real. And because every single one of us is wired by God with a different set of kind of inner needs. And some of us want peace and harmony, and some of us kind of want credit for our work, right? And and like I said, all these problems can be contributed to miscommunication issues. Parents, kids, siblings, relatives. If you have a difficult relationship, it's probably a communication issue. Families have been fractured. Business partnerships have been broken because of communication issues. But have you ever noticed that at the same time, certain words really scratch an itch? Right? You're talking to another person, and the way they respond, you're like, man, they just get me. They just understand me. We click. They totally understand what's behind this. You feel respected. You feel appreciated. They build you up because they're speaking like your communication language. And so today we're going to open up the Bible to one verse. We're going to talk about one verse today. I think it's going to revolutionize our way of understanding communication, how we interact, and how we speak to one another. This verse is in Ephesians chapter 4. And this is Paul writing to the Ephesian church in Ephesus, which is in modern-day Turkey. And he says this. He says, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. How many of you have ever heard that before? Right? I heard that all the time as a kid. That's kind of where the verse cut off for me as a kid. And that really meant, hey, don't cuss, no like vulgar jokes or dirty jokes. You shouldn't do this. Like you should just kind of be, you could just kind of just be nice, right? But don't say, mean things or hurtful things, or, don't curse a lot. But it keeps on going. Don't let it come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. That's a game changer, right? That's a game changer. We've heard this before. We've heard don't let anything bad come out of your mouth, and that's true. But that's the surface meaning. There's something deeper. There's a deeper layer to this. And what Paul says, unwholesome, when he says unwholesome, what he's really saying here, he's saying what's not making someone whole. Don't use words that don't build each other up. Don't use words that breaks people down, that makes them less whole, that hurts them. He flips it. Don't say those things, but only say what is helpful in building others up according to their needs. Most of us communicate according to our needs, right? Like there's something I got to say. This is what I have to say to them. This is what I got to get off my chest. This is what I got to make known. But Paul says, if you actually communicated according to their needs? What if you actually first look into their deeper needs and then actually adapted your words, you customize them to meet those needs. It's like I'm actually, in other words, I said this, not just I said this or you heard that, but you heard that. Now I know how you hear. Therefore, I'm going to adjust the words that I say. Make sense? I'm actually going to use my words according to your needs so that you feel built up in the process. And you're going to benefit from the way I communicate with you, and you're going to feel heard, and you're going to feel listened to. It's a revolutionary idea. So typically, when I'm speaking to others, like I'm trying to make a point, or I'm trying to, get the last word in, or I'm trying to sound smart, or whatever it is that drives you. And Paul flips it and says, instead of using your words to build yourself up, instead, what if you used your words to build your listener up and communicate in their language? Just think about that. Think about those that you love. What would it look like for your spouse, your kids, your roommate, the person in your connect group, your coworker, your boss? What if when you were like, hey, I'm not concerned about my rights, I'm more concerned with how you hear what I'm about to say? And how would you learn to speak their native communication language? If you're going to learn to love others well or lead others well and meet their needs, you're going to need to learn how to speak their language. And if you're going to speak life today or tomorrow morning, and your words are going to, use your words to love others like Jesus loved, you have to put this into practice. There's a great resources, kind of where this message kind of came from. A lot of great material kind of went into this, but there's a great resource called "I Said This, You Heard That" by a counselor, psychologist Kathleen Edelman, and she has this awesome resource that has basically "I said this, you heard that, or you heard that." How your wiring colors your communication. We're going to talk a little bit about this today. This is a game changer. It's for anyone who's looking to communicate in a deeper, healthier way with those you love. Maybe it's a connect group. Maybe you want to do, it's like a 6-week study. It's a connect group. Maybe it's an end of summer reading. Do it together with your spouse. It's awesome. It's awesome. But this helps you identify what your unique wiring is. In other words, what are your natural strengths that God has given you, and what are the weaknesses that you need to be aware of. And why, because the same words land differently with different people, right? You could say the same thing to one person and say that to another person, and these two different people hear it differently, right? And so they land differently. And the reason that Kathleen Edelman kind of puts it out there is because of our temperaments. Because of our temperaments. You hear and you speak out of your own temperament. And there's a difference between a temperament and a personality. In fact, a lot of you, if you've kind of gone through this, and you've gone through things, personality profiles like Myers-Briggs or DISC, or the new hot one is the Enneagram, right? You're gonna get a lot of this. It's gonna look similar. It's probably gonna look the most similar to a DISC profile. But we're not talking about personality here. We're talking about temperament. Because there's a difference between temperament and personality. Personality is a snapshot of your behavior, of your feelings, and emotions at a certain time. The temperament is the why behind the what. And so we're going to unpack these 4 temperaments. This is how you are predisposed to speak or hear certain words in a certain way. Think of it as your native language. This is the language that you were born with. And we're going to use colors because that's just, I need that. We'll just say it for me, my sake, right? Yellow. If you're a yellow, you are kind of sanguine. You speak in the language of people and fun, right? People and fun. You speak with an animated, fun, people-oriented words. Sound like anybody you know? Don't point. Don't point to, If you're a red or a choleric, you speak the language of power and control. You often speak with boldness and confidence and controlling words. Blue is a melancholic. You speak the language of perfection and order. You often speak with detailed, thoughtful words. And if you're a green, you speak the language of calm and harmony And you often speak with easygoing and unenthusiastic and patient words. So you have these 4 spectrums. And it probably sounds like someone you know, and you could probably identify yourself in these 4 arenas. And what Kathleen Edelman says is temperament is your innate wiring from God. She says what you're naturally disposed to, like your eye color or your fingerprint, it's unchangeable. It's why some people are drawn to the spotlight and stage, and others are content with a cubicle in a quiet office. You don't choose who you are, and you can't change how you're wired, though many of us try. How many have tried to change how you're wired? Temperament is your God-given native language. When someone speaks to you, it colors what you hear. And when you speak, your temperament colors what you say. When you hear something, you hear it through a filter. And when you say something, you're saying it through your color, your filter. The colors kind of match up with the temperament types. Yellow and red are typically extroverts. They're typically extroverts. It doesn't mean that they are full of energy and love people. It means in communication, they express their thoughts and emotions outward. They express their thoughts and emotions outward. These are people who speak before they think. No filter, right? In fact, a lot of these people need to start talking to find out what they feel about what they're talking about. You may know some of those people. They're verbal processors. That's the nice way to put it. Blue and green, though, are typically introverts. They process their emotions and thoughts inwardly. These are folks who think carefully, long and hard, and craft things before they speak them out. And you're probably like, you know what? He doesn't really say that much. And that's because he's processing. He's under the surface. He's kind of processing everything, thinking through it out, crafting what he's gonna say, and then he says it. And the strength and a weakness for a yellow red is that they talk before they really know how they feel. And you better have a filter because your spouse or your kids or your coworkers, let's just say you have some blue and green people in your life if you're a yellow red. And you have to have a filter. So that's kind of a weakness, but it also can be a strength that you're bold, you're decisive, you're enthusiastic, you want to be outward. Another way to look at God-given temperament is this way. This is kind of where these things kind of intersect a little bit, right? Red and blue people are more task-oriented people. They're all about getting the job done. At the end of the day, their top priority is, did we produce something? Did we get it done? Did we accomplish anything? We're going to do that first, and then we'll take care of relationships. While the yellow and the green are more people-driven, right? They prefer people over tasks. Relationships are the highest priority. Yeah, it would be nice if we got that thing done, but are we meeting people's needs? How are they feeling? Relationships are the top priority, and this kind of plays against type because extroverts like people, but they don't necessarily like tasks. And the green, this kind of calm, harmonious, they like people too. Red speaks the language of power and control. Think about this like this. Steve Jobs, think of it, right? They make great leaders. They make great visionaries. But sometimes, if they're not careful, they can make people feel like they are the task. That's a weakness that, if you're a red, you need to keep in mind. And many people can identify what your temperament is, but remember, in Ephesians, Paul says, hey, I want to flip the script, build others up according to their needs. It's one thing to know this thing about yourself, but what's really more important and what's really going to be a game changer for your life is when you're able to communicate according to the other person's needs, according to the listener's needs. The goal is to take into account how the people you love are wired and you let their needs shape the language that you use. So this is just a simple tool to help you use words that build others up according to their needs. Yellows are great storytellers who bring joy to others. They're energetic, they're fun-loving, but they're also often forgetful. and chaotic. It's kind of all over the place. They get distracted easily, let's just say. There are strengths and weaknesses to all of these things. Reds, like you could look up there and feel like, man, reds are negative. Power and control, that's negative, but it's really not negative. You hear power and control and you think negative, but it's about communication, remember. Reds are super responsible. They are decisive. They will see something through to completion even when others quit. And they're often very good at delegating. Blues are detailed and they're orderly. They're detailed and they're orderly, but they can also be judgmental and critical if not careful. So there are strengths and there are weaknesses. And obviously it's a lot more nuanced than this, and we're going to talk a little bit about more of this, but most of us are a mix between these things. Most of us don't have one, and then nothing of the rest. But most of us have a primary and we have a secondary, a feature. We're a mix of this. We speak the language of people and fun or power and control or calm and harmony or perfection and order. And you probably respond differently depending on the situation and the people involved. But what I want to show you today are 3 very simple keys that you can use that can take your words into account as you consider the needs of the people that you love or the people in your life as you're talking to them, as you're communicating to them. The first one is this: your temperament determines the words you speak. Your temperament determines the words you speak. I'm just going to throw up a slide here that says that this is kind of what you would sound like if you were one of these colors, right? So yellows would say something. This is what you would sound like. Hey, that sounds fun. That sounds like fun, right? Red, like, hurry up, do what I said. Green, whatever, man, I'm flexible. And blue, is it safe? Like, are we going to be okay? Is it safe? After service, in fact, you might want to grab some lunch with some people, and you would ask the question, hey, where do you want to go? And greens would be like, hey, whatever, I'm flexible. We can go anywhere. And red's like, let's go to Red Robin. We're going to Red Robin. It's good, it's close, it's easy. Let's go. We're going to go to Red Robin. The yellow was like, that sounds like fun. I like burgers, Hey, what if we invited all these other people to come with us because more the merrier? That would be fun. That'll be fun. And blue's like, I don't know, right? Like the place is kind of a crowded disaster, and they took forever to get us our food last time. And I think that lettuce has E. coli, and I'm just not sure if it's safe, and, And then the red's like, that's not Red Robin, that's Chipotle with the E. coli. And then yellows are like, Chipotle, that sounds like fun. We should go there. And green's like, whatever, I'm fine, I'm good. Let's go. You see how this can kind of play out, all at once, and they all interact with each other. But if you're aware of how other people that you love or like, you're going to speak their language first. It kind of changes the whole dynamic. The more you understand the temperaments of those you love, the more you can put Ephesians 4:29 into practice. Your temperament determines what you speak, the words that you use, the words that you say. Your temperament also, number 2, determines the words that you need to hear. Your temperament, it's never going to change. That's fixed. Your personality, on the other hand, that's fluid. You are not the same person you were when you were 15. Let's hope not, anyway. That's a good thing, right? And the words that you need to hear are going to be motivated by core, innate needs that we have had since the moment we were born. And they can be temporarily satisfied, but they cannot be permanently fixed. And so I'm going to give you another example of how you can use these words, maybe even at work. And this varies by coloring too. And this is the 4 kind of innate needs that you need based on your coloring. The yellows, they need approval. They need acceptance. They need attention. And they need affection. If you're talking to somebody who is a yellow, they're fun, they're energetic, they're easygoing, they love people, and they're very outward. What they need to know is that, hey, I see you. I see you. I see what you're doing there. That's a great job. I'm going to affirm you. I'm going to give you attention. I notice you. I see you. You're doing great. Hey, let me give you a hug. Let me show you and tell you how much you're doing a great job, and we love you here. Reds, they need loyalty. They need a sense of control. They need appreciation. They need kind of credit for their work. They're accomplishers. They're task-driven, outward going. They're producers, and they want to be able to produce something. And so when they produce something, they want to be like, hey, you know what? I contributed to this, or I did this. And if you're talking to a red, you can say, hey, man, that was awesome. I saw you crushed that. You did that. You led that team, or you knocked that project out of the park. That was all you. Even if it was a team, I just say that was all you. And they'd be like, that's great. Greens, they need harmony, right? They need worthiness. They need a lack of stress, and they need respect. They want you to be okay with who they are, and they want you to they want to belong, but they want you to see them and respect them, but don't stress them out. And blues, they need safety, right? They need sensitivity. They need support. They need space and silence. In fact, blues, they need to know that you have their back. They need that support. They need to know that you have their back no matter what. Now, if you said, I see you to a yellow, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. I see you, I've noticed you, you're doing such a great job. If you say, I see you to a blue, they're like, oh my gosh, man, you're watching me? And they start getting freaked out. It's completely, you can say the same thing and it goes completely different depending on your temperament. The best way to build up a blue is to ask a question. What can I take off your plate? What would make this work better? Because the blues are detailed and they're thoughtful and they're crafting something, and they have probably processes going all on the inside, and we don't know anything about them. Those of us who aren't blues, and we're going, okay, if we just let them kind of throw something out there, it's already been thought through. It's already been kind of planned out. All the loopholes have been kind of probably plugged up. We just kind of let them, ask them questions. That's the best way to build up someone who is a blue. It's about customizing your language to fit Ephesians 4:29. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. Think through it first. Think through it first. Have a filter, but only what's helpful. Only speak what's helpful to build up others according to their needs. And this is for any relationship. Your temperament determines the words that you say. Your temperament also determines the words that you need to hear. And thirdly, every word that you use is a word you choose. Every word you use is a word that you choose. The tongue holds the power of life or death. It's either poison or fruit. You choose. What you say, the words you choose are either going to build people up, they're either going to make them whole, or they're going to tear them down and dismantle them. So you need to choose your words wisely. You need to understand the temperaments changes every conversation. If you understand their temperament, it changes their conversation because you're going to be able to choose your words according to what they need to hear. And that is a complete game changer. So I want to give you 3 ways that you can choose your words wisely. One is this. Just simply take a pause. Just stop and breathe for a minute. And for those who are yellow and even red, this could be a game changer. Just stop and think for a second. I'm going to stop. I'm going to think who I'm speaking to before I even say a word. This is very hard for verbal processors. But you got to take time and you got to think, what are the needs of my listener? What does my wife need? What does my husband need? What does my kid need? Then you can craft your words according to what is helpful to them. And by hitting that pause button before you talk, you are sacrificing your temperament or your right to get your point across and are understanding their wiring and what's going to become effective, how what you need to say can be effective to them. Take a pause. The second one is this. This is how you can choose your words wisely. Just give grace. Understand that they may be wired differently than you, right? It's not wrong. It's just different than you. In fact, married couples, it's usually polar opposites. It usually is. Not always, but sometimes it is. God's wired them differently from you, and he gave you the gift of bringing you and them into a relationship together, and you've got a lot to learn. Most couples statistically marry their opposite temperament. It's kind of God's sense of humor. None of the temperaments are the same, and none of them are better than the other. And the key is to master your own and give grace to the other ones. Master your own, give grace to the other ones. We have to give grace to this. We can't necessarily try to fit everybody into our temperament box. It's just not going to work. That's where these miscommunication things happen. That's where fights kind of originate, right? That's where we have kind of riffs. That's where somebody can say one thing and they're off. They want space. They want silence. They want to think through it. They're going to come out with a plan, and then they're going to come back to you and talk about the plan. And they're going to say the same thing to a red, and they're going to be like no, kind of jump down your throat because they are verbal processors and they're extroverts and they have no filter sometimes. Fights happen easily when we don't master our own wiring and we're not thinking about the needs of the person we're talking with. So take a pause, give grace, and the last thing is to celebrate the difference. Just celebrate the difference. It's understanding that her strengths are my weaknesses and my strengths are her weaknesses, and that puts us in a place of humility, right? Humility and transparency and communication and dependency on the other. It's big. We can celebrate those differences. Be quick to listen. Slow to speak, slow to become angry. Paul, this one verse, so power-packed. Do not let any unwholesome talk out of your mouths. I love that verb. Don't let it out of your mouths, right? It doesn't mean that it's not in your head. Don't let it out of your mouth. Don't let it out of your mouth. In other words, you have a choice in every conversation. You are literally choosing to let that word come out of your mouth or keep it in and craft it according to what they need. Don't let it out of your mouth. We are horrible at this. Let me back up. I am horrible at this. I cringe almost daily about some things like this. In fact, I was preparing for this message, and even last night, I'm thinking about it. I'm planning more. I'm doing some more work on it, and I'm going, oh, man, this happened today. But don't let it out of your mouth. Sometimes people are like, well, I just had to say it. That's just how I am. That's just me. That's just me, And they can even put some stereotypes to it, right? I'm Italian. That's just how we are. It's just what I do. I had to get that off my chest. No, sorry, you have to deal with that. I have to say it. No, you don't. No, you don't. As a follower of Jesus, you never get to use your temperament as an excuse or a weapon. You chose those words. Now, your temperament may have naturally inclined you in a certain direction, but it doesn't mean what you said or how you said it is right. So, never make excuses. Never say I'm hot-blooded or I'm short-tempered or I'm just a driven person. Or the words you say are supposed to be for the benefit of others. You also can't say, hey, I'm a blue. I've thought through this, so, deal with it. Got to figure it out. Just listen to me, and I'll tell you what needs to happen. You just got to think through what others' needs are and communicate with them that way. This is a game changer for all of us if we really apply, not only master who we are and our wiring, but talk to other people the way they need. That verse is so powerful. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful. Right? So there's a pause right there. Is what I'm about to say, is it actually helpful? And some people, we can be like, you know what? Yeah, it is helpful. They need to hear this. This is going to help them. It's going to be, horrible for them to hear, but it's going to be helpful for them. Okay, think about that. Maybe take another pause and think about that. How is it going to be helpful to building them up according to their needs? Color your words according to their needs. If they're a yellow, celebrate their energy, celebrate their fun-loving spirit. If they're red, hey, be grateful for their high sense of responsibility. If they're green, greens are easygoing, which is great, right? Like greens are pretty easy to get along with. Blues, they may be quiet, but they're deeply thoughtful people, and it's important to value that. They need respect. Choose to use the words that love your listener the most. That love your listener the most. This is going to take some work to apply to our lives, isn't it? It's not just about being nice. It's communicating to people according to what's going to build them up. It's going to be helpful to them according to their needs. It's different. It's going to be different in every single conversation that you have. Now you're going to get to, if you really apply this to your life, it's going to help your marriage. It's going to help how you parent. It's going to help your relationship with your coworkers, with your boss. It's going to help your relationship with your neighbors that that keep on mowing your grass weird, and kind of cutting in and just doing weird things to your lawn. It's going to help you all across the board in all relationships. But we have to think about this verse. In fact, what I would say is this would be a helpful verse to just kind of have plastered somewhere, or to, better yet, memorize. Because when you're taking that pause, what could you be doing? You could be saying, okay, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of my mouth, but only what is helpful, building others up according to their needs. Okay, what am I going to say to them? And go. It's super helpful. We need to take those pauses. We need to give grace. We need to celebrate the difference. Your coloring is going to help that. Master your own, but understand who you're talking to them, and that's going to help you love. It's going to help your relationships. Let me pray for you this morning. Father, we thank you for your word, and we ask you to help us now shape our words. Thank you for the variety of temperaments here, God. Thank you. We celebrate the difference because we can see you more fully because of it. God, you wired us all so differently so that we can see you more completely. And I pray that there will be a breakthrough in relationships. Where there's conflict, there would now be grace, understanding, renewed depth of intimacy. I pray that everything that we say and everything that we do this week will bring glory to your Son, Jesus.